Former star receiver Demaryius Thomas was just recently diagnosed with stage 2 CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. And the news came out. We all kind of knew that. He died at tender age of 33, man. Terrible. And so I want to take a little time with the season just around the corner to kind of take two roads on this, to flesh out the entire story, to give a little bit of tribute, and also to create a little bit of a cautionary tale, but maybe not in the exact direction you think. Someone had posted a comment in a podcast I did. I said, I loved heroes. I loved men of power and adventure, reading about them. And I said, I love playing football because it was able for me to kind of express that. And that modern sports athletes were creating the legends that we heard about in years past. But football, unlike any other sport, really exemplified and portrayed as much as you can these kind of grand tales of heroes fighting monsters and all this other stuff. And he had said, people take football players too seriously or give them too much credit and a little narcissistic, and so was your intro. I said, oh, okay, I understood where he was coming from, but I don't think he understood where I was coming from. So I want to give that tribute to Demaryius Thomas because there's a lot of things that I knew but didn't know as I was studying him out. I was really a heartfelt kind of guy. And then just kind of talk about this little part on the side as a backdrop, because we are entering another season of the NFL and another season where the human body is going to be put under rigors that are rarely seen, both mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and certainly physically. Before I get into that, though, I want to give a shout out to you guys who all stopping by. Just take your time to listen to this monkey talk. I appreciate you. Without you, this wouldn't happen. But I also want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, Ace Per Head, because without them, certainly this show wouldn't happen. Ace Per Head's betting software is the premier white label platform for bookies to manage their players and grow their sportsbook operation. Click the link in the description below to get set up in minutes. Ask for the Curtis promo and get a special introductory discount. Demaryius Thomas was one of those freak human beings. 6'3", 225, ran a 4.3, 840. I didn't realize that until I went back and looked at him. And the man posted a 34 on the Wonderlic, which means he was a physical specimen and a smart cat on top of that. Combined. He's like one of those Greek gods type characters. But what I didn't even know was that his mother had been in jail since he was 11 when he and her were both arrested on drug dealing charges. She was going away for life. She got clemency, either 2015 to 2015, I think. And 2016 was the first game she'd ever seen him play. This guy rose up from nothing, from very tragic circumstances to be what, people would exemplify as the heroic, iconic character, in modern America, the athlete, maybe the actor you want to throw in there too. But this guy was on top of the world stage. 2 AFC championships, 5 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, 4 Pro Bowls, a victory in Super Bowl 50. Unfortunately, he had 1 catch for 8 yards. A kind of, shame. But this guy had come from nothing, rose up in an incredibly difficult sport to be successful at, and went to the highest level. Sandwich in between, he tore his ACL in his second season, came back, kind of lost some of that speed, but still was obviously highly effective. And then 2018, tore his Achilles again. If I misplaced it, was Achilles the first time and Achilles again. And so that kind of bookended his career, and that's how his career ended. But still, unbelievable career. The man was very smart, by all accounts, a nice guy, unbelievable athlete. Unfortunately, 33 years old, he died from brain trauma. And it wasn't just 33. He was going through things for years prior to that. And when you study out CTE, 99% of former players have some level of CTE. As Dolphin fans, we know the tragic end to Nick Bonaconte. Classy, awesome guy. But for him, it was later in life. But for poor Demaryius, it was an early end. And that's the whole thing. First, I want to say is football players are football players. They're not soldiers. They're not, ancient heroes or whatever. But there's an imaging of that. And they're far greater exemplifiers of the modern mythology than actors, because actors are total frauds. I love movies, but they're just totally making it up. These guys actually have to go through it. And that's what I was trying to say. Not that these guys are superheroes. Soldiers, obviously, are the true heroes of today. But we don't get to see their journeys. We don't get to go through their journeys like we do on the NFL level. And human culture needs mythology and stories. And they play that part along with baseball and all these other sports. But because of what football does to the human body, because of the way it plays out, all the aspects to it, for me, none of it, no other sport. I mean, yeah, boxing is brutal and there's a lot of beauty in that mythic sense. They take the head injuries, obviously, but the whole total body is not the same. Rugby, I don't really pay attention to rugby, but that's a brutal sport too. But again, it goes back to football as just a little bit on another level. And so that's what I was trying to say with that. For men, we look for role models. And that's why we've had these ancient mythologies and heroes. And obviously these guys, a lot of these football players, I know, I've seen it, on a small level, how crazy the sport is. Yeah, they're doing this heroic stuff, but underneath there's a lot of darkness. But still, there's guys that come into this sport and they're great people. They're heroic both in the physical and the mental sense, the personal sense, and that's who Demaryius Thomas was. Unfortunately, his body wasn't like Nick Bonaconte. His brain couldn't absorb the damage. And so his demise, his suffering from it happened much, much sooner. And that's what it is. It's a roll of the dice. It's a genetic predisposition for these things. I mean, everybody who gets their brains banged around is going to suffer from this. And you don't know who's getting the bullet on the Russian roulette. Unfortunately, Demaryius Thomas was one of those guys. But there's so many, all these football players are taking this beating for our entertainment. Now, it's not to glorify them and say that they're angels and the greatest things since sliced bread. But we have to, in a way, keep the realization that people are giving up their bodies, their minds for this game. Now, this is the other road. People are definitely going to say this is tragic, and it is. But we also have to remember that you go back to the 1800s in Britain. Kids, 10 years old, 9 years old, were working in the coal mines to put food on the table, to keep their family supported. And they wouldn't even make adulthood. They would die with black lung. And that even kind of situation continued into the 70s and the 80s in America. You go into the heartland and in the mountains on the East Coast, and people were working mines up and down, dying in collapsed mines and black lung, and they never had the quote-unquote glory or attention or money that modern athletes get, football players get. And so, in the same token, yes, it's tragic. Yes, this sport will devour your brain. It will. But what I want to say is, there's some people who say, they're millionaires, they shouldn't complain. And other people say, oh, it's so tragic. Men make choices. Thankfully today, there's knowledge of what you're getting into. When I grew up, it wasn't like that. A lot of these old athletes had no clue. I remember running nutcrackers 20 times in a row, practice after practice at like 10 years old, 9 years old, with Chucky Wildman, who had a giant Cro-Magnon forebrow, and I'm crying, but I wouldn't quit. And my coach would be like, that's how you play. I remember a guy built like you wouldn't believe. I mean, shoulders thick. He wanted to play football his whole life. His mother said, no, you can't. You're going to hurt your head. You're going to hurt your brain. You don't. No. He watched me play football. And then after we started playing in our 20s, super smart guy, like amazing. He had like a 2000 or around 2000 board rating in chess, counting, super smart, but just built like and he always wanted to play. So we started playing like the flag football. And I remember this kid, well, he was a kid in his early 20s, something was happening. He'd get hit in the head, come home, get sick, sit in bed all day. And sometimes we would play for years. And at a certain point, he wouldn't even get hits, and he'd come home and he'd be sick, and he'd get headaches. And then his personality started changing. I haven't talked to him a couple of years, but now it's really coming to understand what was going on with this guy. But he played for the love of the game. He didn't make $1. So we make choices. We're not getting out of this show alive. And we have to understand that while in the same token, there is serious ugliness to the sport as far as what it does to the physical body. You get one show at this, one run at this life. It's a fun sport to play. And if you can make money off it and set your family up, Demaryius' mother must be heart-wrenched that her son has left her. She gets out of jail, and in short time later, she's not with him anymore. But think about the generations that he's able to support by what he's done, how he's changed his family's direction. Money isn't everything, but it sure is something. And there is a heroic nature to this. I wish Demaryius Thomas could have lived to 80. I'm sure he did. I'm sure he was terrified as he went into this final stage. But we make choices. I don't know if Demaryius understood the choices he was making, but clearly he played a game he loved. He excelled at it. He had a short life, but he created an avenue for his mother, for the family that he had around him. And there's a lot of people in this world soldiers who are dying, getting the legs blown off, and they have never been able to create that thing, this money pot to give health benefits and nice houses and food to your kids and family. There's so many soldiers that are broke on the streets. There's so many people who play college football who have CTE and never made a dime, and they're suffering. So in one token, I feel very bad for Demaryius. I wished it never happened, but he reached such a high point and was able to do so many great things, and he made a choice on a road. And we fans, as we watch the game, we need to also understand this. The game has had to change to protect these players, and we have to understand that there's a real reason for it. We also have to understand that, yes, they are millionaires, some of them, but some of them is not as much as you might think. But they're giving their bodies up. And while this is only a game, it's still a game played seriously. So as we enter this season, remember, we get one run at this life. Demaryius, it was a short run, but it was an epic, successful run as far as doing what he wanted to do, what he loved, and reaching a high level and be able to create a situation for his family of protection financially. And maybe awareness to help mitigate and make the decisions of other football players who are entering in this arena to say, hey, is this what I want? Because there is going to be consequences for this choice. So I salute Demaryius Thomas because everything you hear about this guy, he did it the right way at every level, as a man, as a person, as a football player. And fans, we do get this wonderful thing to watch, but it is a serious game. And they might not all make it out whole. And so we have to respect that. But also, pee-wee sports, college sports, football that is, these guys are giving up their bodies as well. And that game of football is never going to change this risky element. Anyway, I hope you understand where I'm coming from. I hope I did a fair enough tribute to Demaryius. I wasn't callous because I do feel for the man. But I also admire what he was able to accomplish even in that short time, because so many people live long lives and never accomplish even a quarter of what this man's done. Anyway, it's Curtis saying thanks for staying to the end. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Comments mean the most. Give your hopes, prayers, and hearts at the Thomas family, especially his mother, and all the people around him that loved him. Catch you next time. Start building your own online sports book today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.